What's up guys, it's Jess and welcome back to my channel. So today we're going to be starting a new series on my channel in which we talk about true crime cases and look into the facts about the case and different things, including suspects and everything else about the case, and give you guys the information. Some of them will be solved, some of them will be unsolved like today's case, and if any of you out there have any information on the case, I will be leaving all of that information at the end of the video so that you guys can be involved and give your ideas on the case and if you know of any leads. So today we are going to be discussing the case of Amy Mihaljevic. Now, I'm familiar with the case because I actually grew up in the town right next to where Amy Mihaljevic was taken. So we're going to get into that case. So this one kind of hits home for me. So if you guys like these kind of videos, or interested in true crime like I am, then we're going to just dive into the case. On October 27th, 1989, Amy Mihaljevic left her middle school to head towards the Bay Village shopping center in Bay Village, Ohio. She did this after getting a call from a man at her home saying that he wanted Amy's help to buy her mother a gift for the promotion that she had received at work. After a little bit of convincing, Amy agreed to meet the man and walked with two friends to the Bay Village shopping center. At 2:10 p.m., witnesses say that they saw Amy standing with a man who was wearing a flannel shirt and round glasses. He placed his hand on her back and led her to the car, and that was the last time anyone saw Amy Mihaljevic alive again. Amy was 10 years old at the time that she was taken, and she was known to be a bright, bubbly girl. She was very smart, and she wasn't so much of a tomboy, but she wasn't girly at the same time. She kind of fell in the middle of the spectrum, and everyone loved Amy and said that she had a bright personality that just lit up a room. That day, around 3 o'clock, Amy's mother received a call from her son saying that Amy had not returned home from school. In a panic, Amy's mother was frantic to find out where her daughter was, but then she received a call from Amy saying that she was fine, she was at home, and not to worry, and that everything was okay. The mother wasn't quite convinced though, however, and left work, returned home to find that Amy was not home, and that she really had been missing. She didn't waste any time and immediately filed a police report saying that her daughter had gone missing. The investigators did vet out that the parents were not involved, both had strong alibis that they were at work, and that no one in the family was involved in the taking of Amy Mihaljevic. The next 4 months were brutal for this family. This case reached national media news. It was seen on America's Most Wanted, Oprah, and a lot of other celebrity talk shows talked about this case and this little girl from Bay Village who just went out of nowhere. And Bay Village was not the type of town to have this happen. It was a quiet little town, and I know that personally. Like, it's a small town, and you go there to raise a family and be community oriented. It's not really like that. They've never had anything really like that before, and this sparked national news. My mom was actually around at the time of this happening, and she remembers the case and how widespread that it was covered, and if you were alive at the time and you knew this and you were old enough, you knew the name Amy Mihaljevic. It was all over the news. Groups were set up all over Bay Village, and the main one being in City Hall. These were used to make posters and wanted signs and everything else, raise money to help bring Amy home. But at this time, there were no strong leads and not even a composite sketch yet because they hadn't had the chance to interview the kids who had seen Amy with this man. However, when they did investigate and talk to the 10-year-olds who saw Amy with this man, they were able to come up with one composite sketch, which I will insert right here so you guys can see it. Investigators say that that is not something to be 100% stuck by because these were 10-year-old kids who were witnessing this. There were no adult witnesses, so take it with a grain of salt, but both gave a very similar description of the man, and that is what they ended up coming up with after talking to an FBI agent. In total, this case had over 15,000 leads, and they constantly had the phone ringing at the FBI headquarters and at Bay Village Police Department trying to find out who took Amy, where she was, and people claimed to see her or see the man in the composite sketch, but at the time, there was nothing strong enough that investigators really started looking into it. However, they finally started to get a break in the case when a man came forward who was a neighbor of Amy, and his daughter claimed that her and Amy had a conversation about how she had received a phone call from a man claiming to be a coworker of her mom's who wanted to buy her mother a gift for the promotion she had just received. This information had not come out at this point, and now knowing this, investigators looked to see if there was anyone else in the area who had received similar phone calls or if any other cases had come forward before about someone receiving phone calls like this. Police believed that this man who made the phone call was the same man that was seen with Amy at the Baskin-Robbins in the Bay Village Shopping Center, and I have the description for the man here, so I'm just going to look down and read it for you guys. So the man was 5'9", between 35 and 40 years old, of muscular build. He had dark hair, slightly waving, but was balding, and was wearing round glasses and a flannel shirt. Or now, this was in 1989, so he's not going to look exactly the same, but you know the age and about the height. He was also a white male, so that is all the information that they have on the person that was seen with her. Shortly after Amy went missing, there was another call made into the North Olmsted Police Department by two girls who claimed to have gotten a similar phone call that Amy received. These two sisters, who to this day remain anonymous because they are afraid of someone still being out there, this guy was never caught, said that they received the same phone call, that this man was friends with their mother and wanted to buy her a gift because she had just got promoted at work. And one of the daughters said that every time that they received one of these phone calls, their mother was not home and there was a car sitting outside their house. Now, North Olmsted is like 20 or 25 minutes away from Bay Village. It's not a very far drive. So investigators believed that this was the same person who had made the phone call to Amy Mihaljevic, and that if he called again, they wanted to look into those phone calls. However, those girls never received another phone call again. Investigators and FBI agents tried to find a connection between Amy Mihaljevic and these girls from North Olmsted, but they couldn't find anything. So they started to look deeper into other men who had been around in Amy's life and other activities that she had been involved in. And one of these places led them to Holly Hills Horse Riding Farm that was just on the outskirts of Bay Village, where Amy and a lot of her friends tend to ride horses and took lessons. The main suspect there was a caretaker at Holly Hills who took care of the horses and the fields. People described this man as suspicious, uncomfortable, and said that he paid a special amount of attention to Amy when she would come on the days she would ride. He would try to talk to her a lot, tried to get to know her, and said that he was uncomfortable with a lot of the girls, but noticed that he had taken a special liking to Amy. This man, however, was vetted out by investigators because there was no major leads to him except for the fact that on the day that Amy was taken, she was wearing green sweatpants and a green sweatsuit. They ended up finding a pair of green sweatpants buried at Holly Hill Farms, which was similar to the clothes that Amy was wearing when she went missing. However, nothing was ever found with them. They were confirmed not to be Amy's pants, so this caretaker was vetted out by investigators and he was never looked into again. The next lead that investigators had was about a handyman who had been working on Amy's street the week that she had been taken. And this man was also said to be a little weird, a little off, and not someone that people had seen a lot. They said that Amy and this man might have had an interaction. Maybe he thought she was cute and then ended up taking her. They also noticed that this man started going to church a lot afterwards, and sometimes when you commit a crime, if you drastically change your behavior, it can be something that is suspicious. Something that is kind of crazy is a neighbor ended up calling about this specific person, and she started describing it to Bay Village Police Department, and they said, "We know exactly who this is. We've had over 100 people suspect him." So at the time, they were getting lead after lead after lead, and a lot of them were the same leads, but to have 100 people suspect you of something, I just thought that was kind of crazy. Other reasons that people thought that this guy might have been involved in the kidnapping of Amy was because that he lived right across the street from the plaza where Amy was taken, and as well, he was working on her street the entire week before she was taken, then all of a sudden she went missing. However, after speaking to a neighbor about him working on her house, he did have a solid alibi. He did have a solid alibi knowing that he was sitting on this woman's couch at the time of the murder, so he was again vetted out and was not someone that was seriously investigated. A major breakthrough in the case came, however, on November 30th, 1989, when Bay Village Police Department received a call from a girl claiming to be Amy Mihaljevic. The phone call basically entailed of a very short message saying, "My name is Amy Mihaljevic and I am in Farmington, Maine," and then the call was disconnected. Investigators were shocked to receive this phone call and immediately took it to Amy's parents to play it for them to see if they recognized the voice of their daughter. Amy's mother listened to the tape one time and was convinced that it was her. And at the time, they had received a lot of false hope and a lot of things that said it might be this person or we think we've seen her, and every time they were shot down. So to have this phone call and to be convinced that it was your daughter, they were so excited. But unfortunately, that didn't last long because investigators ended up finding out where the call came from, and it turned out to be a woman who struggled with mental illness who had made false police calls before, and it was not Amy. It was proven not to be Amy. There was no sighting of her ever in Farmington, Maine, so once again, investigators were back to square one. The final main lead that investigators had was a man who was at a local church in Bay Village, which I've actually driven by a lot. It's the Methodist church there, and he stood up in the middle of a service and said, "I killed Amy Mihaljevic." And he had confessed, and so immediately there were some off-duty police officers who were in service that day, arrested the man and brought him in. But again, it turned out that he suffered from mental illness, and I believe he was a schizophrenic. I don't want to quote myself, but I think he was a schizophrenic, and he claimed that he did it when he really didn't. There was no anything saying that there was no proof that he had done anything. So once again, no major leads, and no one still at this point knew where Amy was. There were also a ton of other minor leads and everything else in this case, and if you guys are interested in learning about those, they actually just came out with an investigation discovery special called The Lake Erie Murders, Who Killed Amy Mihaljevic, and you can watch it on Investigation Discovery. I'll link it in the description box down below. The first episode you can watch online. After 106 days and people looking and searching for Amy, on February 9th, 1990, a jogger was running in Ashland County on an abandoned road when she came across something that looked to be a mannequin in a green sort of outfit, and upon further inspection she found that it was the body of a young girl. Bay Village Police Department and investigators and FBI agents were called out to the scene. The body was found and taken to the coroner's office, and it was confirmed to be Amy Mihaljevic. The cause of Amy's death was blunt force trauma to the head. She had her carotid artery cut. She had been drained of her blood, and that was the final cause of her death, that she had bled out. The coroner's office confirmed that Amy's death probably took place very soon after she was taken. She was probably taken from Bay Village, drove out to Ashland, and murdered. After investigating, police noticed that Amy had a few items that were missing. When she walked to the square at Bay Village, she had a backpack with her and as well a notebook that was given to her by her father. It was a very specific type of notebook. It had a gold brass buckle on it, and that was missing. Her backpack was missing, as well as her white and black windbreaker, her boots, and very specifically, there were a pair of green horse stud earrings because, she loved to ride horses, that were missing that she was wearing that day. So I'm going to pop up images of those items for you guys, so if you or your parents or anybody may have seen these items, knows them, they look familiar, because a lot of times when people commit crimes like this, they end up taking trophies. So now someone that I want to talk about that is crucial to this case, I think, is someone who isn't even an investigator. He was actually 11 years old at the time that Amy was taken. His name is James Renner. James Renner is an investigative researcher. He does write articles. He has a blog that I will link in the description that's going to kind of go more into detail about what I'm going to talk about next. So James became obsessed with solving Amy's case. He was 11 at the time, and from that day forward, he wanted to know what happened to Amy. And he actually believes that he has solved the case. He says he's not 100%, but he believes that this is most likely the person who did it, that there's enough evidence to get an indictment, and that investigators should have looked into this person more. This suspect is named Dean Runkle, and Dean was a teacher, not in the Bay Village area. I believe he was a teacher in the Amherst area, but he was a teacher. He was known to have inappropriate relations with students. He would write them love letters, got a little too friendly with their students. While investigators were looking into, as I mentioned before, the similar phone calls that the people in North Olmsted received, they wanted to find some sort of connection between those people and Amy Mihaljevic. And after a long search, and with the help of James Renner, they ended up finding a connection between the girls and Amy, which was that all of them had attended the Bay Village Nature Center, where they had to sign in when they got there. a little bit of information about them where they signed in to go to the nature center. And all of them had attended that nature center. Runkle was known to be a person who volunteered at the nature center. He worked there quite often, so that would be the way that he received Amy's phone number and the other girls' numbers and was able to call them at their homes. So that was his connection to Bay Village, but a lot of people were curious as to how this person could have been involved in her murder if there was only a connection to Bay Village. But shockingly enough, he also had a connection to the Ashland County area, in which he had a trailer that he lived in out there that was kind of in the middle of nowhere and was not far from where Amy's body was found. After Amy's murder, just a few weeks after she went missing and after the body was found, Dean Runkle disappeared for over 6 months. No one knew where he was. He quit his job. He dropped off the face of the earth, and 6 months later reappeared in Key West, Florida. James Renner looked into this man and was convinced that this person had something to do with Amy's murder. He took it to investigators, but investigators didn't believe that they had enough evidence to look after this person, so they just kind of bypassed looking at him. However, James did not give up on this, and he decided that he was going to make the trip to Key West himself to investigate this and to talk to Runkle. James flew down to Key West and he drove around for hours and he could not find this person, and at just the point when he thought he was going to give up, he needed to make his flight home, there was Dean Runkle walking across the street of Key West, and James knew that that was his only opportunity, so he parked his car, got out, and confronted him on a side street. When meeting him, Renner asked right out, "Did you kill Amy Mihaljevic?" To which he never said no, but he also didn't give an answer. He kind of got scared and looked a little frazzled at the question, and then James asked him again, "I'm sure there are a lot of things in 1989 that you'd like to run away from, that you don't want people knowing." To which then Dean Runkle looked at him and said, "I want to speak to my lawyer," and walked away. James was convinced now again that this person had something to do with Amy's disappearance, so he went back home to Ohio. He went to Bay Village Police Department, but once again they didn't believe that there was enough information to look into, so he was never looked into again. But James believed that this person is a strong suspect, and he goes way into more detail about that on his blogs. To this day, Bay Village Police Department still gets phone calls about leads in this case, and 30 years later, it's never been solved. Now, this is the part that I really want you guys to listen to, because this is a major breakthrough in the case that happened not too long ago. As shown in the documentary that I watched, that Investigation Discovery released, there was a green sheet that was found at the site where Amy's body was found. It was found not far from the body, and at the time there was no way for them to find out if the DNA on it was Amy's or anything like that, so they kept it locked in evidence. However, nowadays we have a lot of ways to check DNA and to test for it, and they ended up testing the sheet again and finding out that there were dog hair fibers on this green sheet, and I'm going to show you guys the green sheet as well, and they proved that this was what the man who had killed Amy had used as basically a body bag to carry her to that site. She was not killed in the field, she was killed elsewhere and brought to this area to be dumped. If you guys recognize the sheets, if your parents recognize the sheets, if you notice anything that might be similar to any of the items that I've mentioned in this video, the sheet, the boots, the earrings, the windbreaker, the backpack, or the notebook, I encourage you guys to call Bay Village Police Department or give a tip to the FBI. I will put up the phone number for Bay Village Police Department right here so you guys can see it. I encourage you guys to call if your family members notice anything, if they lived in the Bay Village area at the time or in the Ashland County area. So that is all the information I have on this case. If you guys are interested in learning more about the case, I highly suggest that you check out the documentary that Investigation Discovery released. Check out James Renner's blog about his investigations as well. And just look into the case for yourself. Let me know what you guys think. If you think that James Renner is right and that man committed it, do you think it was somebody that Amy actually knew? Do you not think it was a stranger? What are your guys' thoughts on the case? I'd be genuinely interested to know. I just wanted to cover this case as my first case in this series because it does hit so close to home for me. It literally less than 10 miles down the street is where Bay Village is. Once again, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, and if you like this series, let me know in the comments down below. Also, what other cases would you like to see me cover? Like I said, they could be solved or unsolved cases. They could be murder cases. They could be any other criminal case that you guys want to see me cover. let me know down below and I would be happy to investigate them for you and get the information out for you guys. Keep this case in the news because it's still unsolved and it's a case that after 30 years needs to be solved. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye guys.